Hello, and thank you for taking the time to watch our webinar. My name is Bennett Tyler with Aberdeen, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to our on-demand webinar session, Choosing a Cloud Solution for Your ERP Can Improve Your Business Performance. This webinar was produced by Aberdeen and is brought to you by Sage. Over the next 50 minutes, we'll be hearing from Brian Ball, VP and Group Director of the Supply Chain, ERP, and GSM Practices at Aberdeen, and Morgan Rachofsky, Senior Product Marketing Manager at Sage. They'll be discussing enterprise-level decision-making in the modern business world, how to stay competitive, the importance of staying current, and what to look for when selecting an ERP provider. They'll also be discussing cloud versus on-premises ERP. This session is pre-recorded, but if you have any questions during the webinar, you can reach out for more information. Contact information will be provided at the conclusion of the webinar. It is now my pleasure to turn the webinar over to Brian Ball.
Thank you, Bennett, and welcome everyone to our webinar today. I want to start with the agenda. We're really going to move through the research findings, Aberdeen research findings, and our methodology to start with, and followed by a little summary and key takeaways, and then our guest speaker. With that, just let me get started moving into the Aberdeen methodology. First thing is we have one in terms of our research methodology. But basically, this is where the data comes from that you're going to see on most of the slides. And the way we go about it is we go out to our end users with surveys. They come back. Based on business metrics, the top 20% we identify as the best in class, and the industry average or the middle 50 and the bottom 30 are laggards. On a lot of my slides, you may see some that are just all companies lumped together because there's not a lot of differentiation. And I also usually go with best in class and all others being the sum of the industry average and laggards. And we'll go through this when we talk through the data, and you'll be very clear in terms of why we want to look at the best in class, because their performance results are significantly better. And the way we approach that is we ask questions around the business pressures, the actions that companies are taking to offset those pressures, the capabilities that they have in place to make those actions come alive, and the technology behind those capabilities. The kinds of questions that we ask are, what does it take to become best in class? What processes do you have in place? What do you need to measure? What might you want to change organizationally, or how do you manage your data, your knowledge management, performance management? All those kinds of questions that we ask lead us to why the best in class, achieve the level that they do. And inevitably, where we find the story, it's always in the capabilities and enablers that are the big differentiators. So with that, just real briefly, that's the methodology, where the data comes from, and the thinking behind it. So I'm going to jump now and get into the meat of the presentation on choosing an MRP or an ERP, and from the cloud and how it can help your business performance. Let's just start with the speed of business. It continues to increase, and companies are being forced to accelerate their processes. Integration, time to data, time to information is at a premium. We used to talk about 2-day delivery, and then it became next-day delivery, and now we're even talking same-day delivery. So having information in a critical time frame is even more important. So what that does to processes, it makes those things have to go faster. And so with that, all companies are concerned about staying current on their technology just to remain competitive. On-premise licenses are giving way to cloud-based solutions as technology advances. And you'll see that as we walk through some of the demographics of ERPs. In addition to making the changes to stay current, in many cases, companies are being forced to make a change because their provider is sunsetting their solution, or they're completely moving away from their former architecture and to a cloud architecture. And they find that they've got to make a choice, or they've got to go investigate. Should I look at everybody? Should I just stay with the current provider? How do I approach that? So we'll discuss that a little bit. As far as cloud, we find today that it can bridge technology gaps without, complete rip and replace, a real benefit to companies particularly smaller companies that just having the muscle and the effort and the manpower to go through a complete, changeover of their business is pretty painful. So it allows them, it affords them the opportunity to go out and get the pieces of technology that they need or don't currently have, and without just gutting the whole system. So some real advantages there in terms of bridging technology gaps, and then also the having a platform for ERP that continues development and advances technology. So things such as artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, IoT, machine learning, embedded analytics, having all those things native to the platform and part of the platform as the provider moves forward are the kinds of things that users want to ask before they jump too quickly and make a choice. But we'll talk about some of those. So let's just talk about some of the business pressures that companies face right off the bat, and so you get a pretty good idea of when we ask the question. This is the response: increased competition in the first position, needing to manage growth expectations, not far behind, reducing costs, always in the top 5. Changing customer needs, high on the list, and particularly with the more value-added services and I call it the fickle consumer, who is also translated into anybody even on the B2B side. Their expectations are much higher in terms of what they should get on the service end of it. And then regulatory and reporting requirements are up there fairly high as well. A lot more to manage and a lot of moving parts here that companies are facing. And this is faced by all companies, and there's not a lot of difference between best in class and all others in this case. Everybody sees the same thing hitting them. However, then we get to what are the top organizational goals that they're trying to achieve, even with those pressures in their face. First one is, profitability and margin growth. Not surprising. You have to survive to be able to continue moving forward. So they're by far the top of the list. Customer-facing concerns. Interesting that it's a strong number 2 because if you're going to grow, this is you've got to service your customers for that to happen. Interestingly enough, modernizing business systems is in the 3rd position. Very unusual, or let's say that it's increased in terms of its priority. It's right behind, customer service. So it shows you that companies are really, really interested in staying current on their technology, and they're concerned about it because of, their emphasis on modernizing their system here. And there's a cost of falling behind. We've done research on that and showed that those that are not on the current release, for example, their metrics, even though it may not be huge, and across every metric, they started to slide as soon as they fell behind on releases. So I throw that in there, and another factoid to sort of encourage you to realize that it's real, that not staying current, you could put yourself in jeopardy. There's also a risk that I want to point out that when making a change, if companies are not prepared, you don't want a disaster on your hands either. So, and we're going to talk through what some of those changes might be. At this point, I want to take you through the best-in-class definition. This shows you the metrics that we identified and declared these companies are best in class. These are business metrics. And for ERP, pretty standard stuff from the standpoint of what we look at, the complete and on-time delivery of products and services, 98% versus 88%. Internal schedule compliance, 95 versus the 88 range. Change in profitability, improvement, if you will, over the last 2 years, more than a 2-to-1 factor between the best in class and the others. And then change in productivity over the last 2 years, another 2-to-1 type of 2.5-to-1 sort of differential. So these are significantly better results. And that's the reason we talk about the best in classes. What are they doing differently? And that's what we want to find out as we walk through this. To begin looking at the ERP information, I would make the point that the demographics of the ERP adoption, if you will, almost makes the case for moving to the cloud. And I think that'll become a little more apparent as I walk through this. But starting out, let's just take a look at the state of ERP adoption. First of all, this is across all industries and all sizes. 54% have an ERP. That means 46% do not have a formal ERP system. However, when you look at the addition of, ERP financials, that's another 19%. That gets you up to 73%, pretty high. And then if you look at homegrown legacy systems, which could be construed as being an ERP, you're up to 80% using some type of formal transaction system. There are still spreadsheets out there, though. 8% are still on spreadsheets, and then you've got some other versions and disparate processes that people might employ. But that at least gives you an idea of the number of companies percentage-wise that are out there with some form of ERP in place. Then we ask the question, which is somewhat enlightening if you haven't thought about it, how many ERPs do you manage? The results to me were a little bit surprising. Only 26% have one ERP, meaning that 74% have two or more. Now think in terms of companies that could be global, multinational, or just have been acquired or merged by acquisition, or just a merger by itself where you've got more than one system in place. But in many cases, it could be where as they've morphed, they upgraded some areas and didn't upgrade others. And they may have bought out some smaller businesses and brought them under the fold, but didn't necessarily change the system. But just the numbers alone are pretty interesting. So the majority have 52%, 52% have three or less, but 48% have four or more. Roughly half have four or more ERPs that they're dealing with. I will tell you that when we look at small and medium businesses, these numbers are certainly less for the smaller and medium business size companies. They're not quite as broad. They're almost inverted where a lot fewer have multiple ERPs, beyond three or four. However, again, across the board, all sizes, they're pretty interesting. In some cases, we've got companies with over 100. And the questions that you need to sort of ask about these ERPs, are they all integrated? How many are standalone? Does each instance include all the modules? Or is there some sort of two-tier approach going on there? Are they all running on the same database, data model, platform? And then are you being forced to change by your provider? And if so, you might want to consider all options. And the fact that 74% have two or more, it tells you that integration has to be a concern when you're looking across those that have multiple ERPs, particularly when it comes to collaboration, rolling up financials, communicating on inventory, any of those kinds of issues. As soon as you got two or more systems in place, there's got to be some integration. Now we look at it from the standpoint of age and when was the time since your last adoption. In the last 2 years, numbers are pretty small, less than 10%. When you get up to 5 years or less, you're looking at about 40% of all the companies have made a change. And then beyond 5 years is really 60% of all companies where their ERPs are older than 5 years. But anecdotally, one of the things that is kind of interesting is that most cloud or ERP solutions developed for the cloud, in the cloud, for the cloud, primarily, are really 5 years or less. It's not that people haven't been, going to hosting providers and that they've been handling that for them, but a true cloud ERP really has come into its own more or less in the last 5 years. That doesn't mean that some components may not have been, cloud-like, if you will. Software as a service has been out there, there's no doubt. But really a cloud-based solution and apps that were designed for the cloud, that's a little bit of a different animal. So realize that it tells you that there are a lot of companies, 60%, that might be considering, or they're going to run into the point where they may need to change, and they want to consider what type of options they have in place. Cloud being maybe one of the things that is most attractive. Now we want to look at just what's the behavior of companies? Why is it important, or why would you want to consider moving to the cloud? So you just want to understand where companies are today in terms of staying current with the latest releases of their current technology. And we find that there's some issues there. BestinClass are much more current, with 87% are within 2 years of the latest release. Okay, the large purple bars there, are indicative of the BestinClass. The gray ones are all others. And you can see that the BestinClass are more current. They're 41% more likely to be on or within a year of the current release, 68% versus 48% of all others. So that's a significant difference when you say they're 41% more likely to be, within a year versus their competition. So they're doing something right at the best-in-class level from the system perspective. Only 9%, are 3 years or later, and versus 22% for all others. So just some stats here when you lump them together to see where companies actually stand in terms of staying on the current release. Again, with that thought in mind that we want to look at it from the perspective of trying to stay current on technology across the board. So now we want to get into some of the research findings on the cloud expectations and the considerations that you're going to find. One of the things we found very high on the list is, what are the expectations when you move to the cloud? And sort of anecdotally, a lot of companies are thinking to themselves and expect, based on the way technology is moving, they want it to be the last change they're going to make on the ERP side, because of cloud technology and the ability to add components as you need them with much better integration. They're expecting their provider to, stay current on technology, continue to grow the ERP solution itself, and embed that technology as they move forward. So in doing so, they're high on expecting updates and support packages. The technical support has to be there, and the continued deployment and expansion of ERP that I mentioned a moment ago, that's one of the things we're looking for in terms of expectations. They really don't want to move again. That's really what it gets down to. And because of the cloud technology, they don't really understand why they should have to. If we can go get the things we need, do them or add them incrementally as needed, then there's no reason to go out and do a rip and replace when I'm working with the right kind of provider. So then we talk about why companies choose cloud for their ERP. Again, some pretty interesting data points here. Standardization onto a single system across multiple entities is the top reason for best-in-class, and also for all others, but certainly the best-in-class here, nearly 40%. That's what's driving them in terms of, why they want to choose the cloud. And by the way, the first 4 reasons are not about cost. They're really about technology and the whether it's current or outdated, and really that's the main consideration here. Collaboration needs for multiple locations, considering all the multiple instances and number of ERPs, just being able to communicate effectively is another very strong reason. And the cloud solution could be the answer to that kind of integration challenge. The other thing is asking the question about those kinds of systems. Are they, again, back to the multiple databases that might be supporting the different ERPs? This is where the collaboration and integration, really come into play. Not too far down on the list is just the difficulty of recruiting IT staff. In many cases, this is simply because of those people that can support legacy ERPs. They just may not exist, or they're hard to come by. It could be that those are updated and they moved on to newer, better things. So it's not just salary based, it's literally finding the right folks for perhaps outdated versions. And so companies are running into that. It's one of the top reasons reported. And then fundamentally just dated technology infrastructure. Even SAP moving to HANA with a lot more in-memory type of solutions versus, more of a file-based approach. So those kinds of changes, they're significantly different, and obviously SAP is making those changes as an example. But the point is that dated technology infrastructure certainly can be a driver behind why people want to move. Differentiated selection criteria. Best in class, high on the list, is getting an on-demand software as a solution cloud deployment model. That's what they're after. They did want to get to, one instance, across multiple entities, but getting an on-demand software as a solution cloud deployment is sort of the number one, differentiated selection criteria. And then the integration technologies and capabilities, the third one over, is very, very big and goes hand in glove with, using software as a service type of solution. And then from the former slide where we saw that they want to have multiple entities, integrated on one platform as much as possible. And then you look at the last one on the right, which is they want to see an integrated suite, rather than multiple point solutions with just a new user interface, on them, and so they can call it cloud. They really want solutions, applications designed for the cloud to take advantage of the technologies that are there. And then they're also expecting for the provider to have, some integration capabilities and a track record of successful installations and performances. So these are some of the real keys behind, why I might choose one vendor versus another. Then we look at the concerns that users have when it comes to upgrading your releases, and I'm probably preaching to the choir since we certainly got a lot of practitioners out there in our audience today. But customization is probably top of the list, and it can present an issue and complications when trying to get the proper testing done, if you're going to move to the cloud, where everybody pretty much is going to be staying on the current release or as close to as they can as far as updating. In some cases, there's uncertainty over a new release. This is not related to the cloud, but this is any time that there's a new technology update, people are somewhat skeptical. What is it that they're changing? Why are they changing it? And it hasn't been tested well. And then probably a pretty common one is that the current release is, fine as is. We're getting by. It's doing the job. But that could be, a slippery slope, particularly when you're talking about staying current. And it could be current today, but, obsolete next month. I say that a little facetiously, but, the point is that if they're satisfied with where they are and their business is a little stagnant, there could be reasons why not to move. I would argue that for companies that are in growth mode and trying to increase their business, and their profitability, staying current and wanting to move forward with technology is going to be, part of their mantra, if you will. And then there's a few companies that report now that they're always on the current release, if you will. Only 10%, however. So it's a small number. So it tells you that moving to the cloud is there's some skepticism out there and the recognition that some changes are going to have to be made. And then the other point is just companies have priorities that in terms of just running their business. It could be that they're going through a merger or an acquisition. It could be they're introducing new products. It could be that they're going through an expansion. So there could be a lot of other priorities other than just the systems that they're looking at. It could be taking the management time. So again, this could be a timing factor, not so much a reason why not. So just some thoughts on, the concerns people see. Provider issues and other considerations. This is where you get down to actually when you're looking at providers, what are some of the selection criteria that you need to address and be very conscious of? The cost of, maintenance and support. Are there unique data warehouses required? In other words, when you actually purchase these particular licenses, how's that going to play with the current environment you have? Are you going to be changing all of them? Are you going to be changing some of them? Are you going to migrate? You buy one as the base, and then because you've got multiple ERPs, you migrate over time across maybe your multiple divisions. Those things have to be thought about or considered when you talk about just the cost of maintenance and support. Am I going to need some legacy support for those that I'm not converting immediately? With the integration capabilities, cost aligned with expectations. Find out what it takes to add, a solution within the cloud framework. Make sure you know what those numbers look like. Talk to those that have been through it and understand what you're really getting what you're really getting into and the degree of difficulty that they encountered. Then in terms of the technology and the foundation, the infrastructure itself, is the foundation a complete business innovation platform rewritten for the cloud, or is it, a hosting service with some cloud capabilities and integration capabilities? In other words, what's the DNA behind this? Are the, new technologies embedded, such as artificial intelligence, IoT, social media, or is there a further integration required to get to those, particular capabilities? And then the financial stability, I'd say don't overlook that one in terms of their longevity. Are they looking to be sold? What are the leaders in the industry? What's their track record? Just talking with integration partners alone may tell you a lot. Are some of the big five, are they endorsing these guys? Do they have a practice around this particular provider as sort of a standard? In other words, they're investing in this provider along with some of the other major integrators. So those are the kind of signs to look for that companies should consider when making the selection. And this is a bit dynamic because not everybody is current on everything. They're in the state of flux or migration, moving to, a complete cloud platform, as well as, changing and modifying their apps to be cloud-based applications. So these are some sticky questions that you want to make sure you get answered. Capabilities and connectivity considerations. These are not exhaustive here, but certainly some of the key things that you want to be looking at. Some we mentioned are applications written for the cloud, or the older on-premise solutions with a new user interface. Is there a common data model or a collector of older applications and multiple points of integration? Those are sort of the things that you want to be looking at here. The speed, the visibility, and the connectivity, that's the basis for standardization, across the organization. The ability to, automate across, again, the entire enterprise, for notifying decision makers, having workflows that can be integrated across all the components you've got in your kingdom. Real-time visibility into the status of all processes, again, requires integration and connectivity. Integrated business applications serve as a system of record. Probably stating the obvious, but for those that have multiple instances, which one is it going to be? Or is everyone going to convert? So those are choices and decisions that need to be addressed. And then industry-specific best practices, utilizing those. There could be, providers out there that grew up in particular industries and their solution is very tied to those, and there may be experts in those areas. Are you leveraging those things? Do you have a provider that sort of leans to and does well, and there has many installations in the type of business that you're in? Signs to look for, not necessarily the only thing, but certainly considerations when it comes to the connectivity and integration, if you will. In terms of decision support KPIs, we picked some things that are sort of, I'd say, standard or common across all businesses beyond the best-in-class performance. But these are the kinds of things that people would measure, if you will. Days to close a month on the financial side. Best-in-class companies are a couple of days, faster, if you will. Profitability, improvement. We showed you that one already at about 2.5 times. DSOs, day sales outstanding, about 4 days better. Percentage of time that financial information is received during the decision window, about 10 points better. Improvement in the cycle time. I think this is a pretty key one here. 23% plus percent versus, close to 10%. But again, well over twice the improvement in, cycle time of key processes, okay? In other words, reducing those times. That tells you that they're getting a lot out of their ERP systems. They're getting a lot of standardization across the enterprise, and that's the way you get those kind of results. And then fundamentally, their cash-to-cash cycle improvement, very indicative of how well they're managing, their inventories, how well they're managing their assets. Again, this is not, it's 3+ times, if you will. So again, these are not just trivial, slightly better metrics. These are significantly better. And so this is why you want to consider what the best-in-class are doing. But these are the kinds of financial KPIs that we see across all businesses. And we chose these, and they're not all financial, some of them are process. But we chose them because just about all companies have some version of financials, and they would resonate with most folks, as opposed to diving into some of the more unique things, perhaps in supply chain or manufacturing. But most everyone can take a look at these and say, yeah, we can do better there. Where do you stand is sort of the question you should be asking yourself. And now I want to take you to some of the strategies that the best-in-class companies are moving forward on. And the first thing that you see is that they're really doubling down on what they're already doing. We showed you some of the capabilities that they have in place, and you don't see a whole lot of new things on here that we haven't touched upon. So it tells you that the best-in-class are doubling down on what they do well, because that's how they got to where, their performance metrics are so much better. And they continue, sort of a continuous improvement type of approach, but it's streamline and accelerate processes to improve efficiency and productivity. We saw those numbers. They're substantially bigger, and they don't want to lose their toehold on that. Modernizing technology infrastructure and application, we saw is high on the list, for companies. Number 3, modernizing their system. Focus efforts on servicing and growing their customers, another, high priority, in terms of the organization goals. If you want to grow, servicing your customers is certainly one key way to do it. Being able to change and alter business models. This could be a function of where they've got multiple ERPs, and or they have a concern that if they're going to go out and acquire somebody, merge with somebody, that they want to be able to quickly shift and change and get the new systems in place quite rapidly. They don't want to go through a 2 or 3 year type of install, and it's very laborious when you're going through a change if you've got that kind of time frame. Improving interoperability and collaboration. Again, one of the key things we mentioned, collaborating across multiple entities within the business. High on the list for the best-in-class in terms of their selection criteria. But the point here is that you don't see a lot of, there's something brand new that hasn't come up. These are, let's do what we do and just continue to do it better. Point to be made. So if you want to follow someone in terms of the best way to approach, growing and improving your business, these are some considerations here. Getting back to the theme of staying current on technology, looking toward the future, let's just look at what best-in-class companies have done in terms of adoption, compared to the competition already. In-memory analytics, much stronger, and much further ahead on that one. Social streams, enabling users to comment, see these embedded in solutions, so that while you're in an application, the social stream pops up. You can get to somebody within that application without logging out or jumping out of it and moving to another application. Machine learning is a big factor where virtually every application you now see people talking about the capabilities of machine learning, where again the application recommends you see an issue, an alert, it tells you the top 10 things you might want to consider, and the embedded analytics tell you the projected outcomes if you were to choose one of them. Makes the decision making a lot easier when you're dealing with that level of functionality and capability. Tying the ERP capabilities into IoT, a lot of buzz around that. Some companies are already doing that. It's out there now. 50% of the best in class claim they've got that in place. And then we've all heard about artificial intelligence. Again, that's out there as well. I'm actually in the process of writing a paper about using AI to find anomalies in some of the supplier management space. So those things are being worked on today. Companies have them in place. A lot of use case driven artificial intelligence where the capabilities are there, but they want to make sure the application is worthy of using AI, just not something that you can do with what you already have. Let's find something where it's very unique, and we need that AI capability to really get it done quickly. So with that, let me sort of summarize a little bit in terms of the key findings, and then some takeaways here, just to reiterate a few points. All companies are feeling the pressure to stay current on technology, modernizing their business systems high on the list. And the demographics, almost make the case for, gee, we really should be considering cloud because of all the integration challenges we're going to face based on the number, based on the age, and based on our ability to stay current, on releases. We should be looking at a cloud today. Back to the point, 74% have more than one ERP. And again, we pointed out that the cloud ERP, cloud-based ERP, it's an opportunity to really tackle that integration and technology gap. And again, how you go about it is unique for every company because, again, most companies have, more than one. So developing a strategy around that is certainly going to be key. Best-in-class companies are more likely to adopt software as a solution type of approach. Not a big surprise there. Again, that's one of the advantages of moving to the cloud. And the future expectations are that hopefully that's going to be the last change that they make when it comes to, an ERP change. And then just looking at the metrics alone, there's a good business case to be made that the financials are a lot better. And as we saw, best-in-class performance certainly leads you down the path to follow what they're doing. Some key takeaways, point out here, recommendations, if you will. Aberdeen recommends following the lead best-in-class companies have really set, by adopting a cloud-based software as a solution, ERP approach, and emulating their approach to how you would evaluate and, find potential providers. Use some of those selection criteria to satisfy yourself that you're on the right path. Some key success factors here we want to talk about. Establish a timeline of priorities for keeping your organization current based on your demographics. When I say demographics, again, the number and age that we spent some time on. Identify the core reasons for the change. Is it about your technology? Is it about the cost? Are you being forced to make a change? Is your provider, not leaving you much of an option? And one of the thoughts is, if you're being forced to change, it could be painful regardless of whether you're going to stay with your provider or go to another provider. If you're having to move away completely from what you've had, then there might be time to look at everyone across the board in terms of what's out there. Assess the vendors, their investment in emerging technology. Where are they on their journey to making sure that their cloud solution, is going to last and it's robust and it's got all the components that you want to see? Are they someone who's a leading player? Have they got the right, call it infrastructure platform, if you will? Have they thought that through? Can they answer those questions, or do you get sort of, we're doing this or we're doing that? Are they talking around it, or are they being very direct about that? And then, fundamentally just look for a solution that was built for the cloud. And again, this is where you may find we're migrating to, yes, we have one. It could go a lot of different ways there. So these are some of the criteria, some of the, success factors that you want to check off in terms of knowing who you're going to look at. And then seek a secure vendor who's got, can give you a long-term partnership. Will they be there for the future? And this may be one of the biggest underlying reasons. management needs to be involved in this kind of a decision, and address any of those issues, in the financial stability and ownership before you make the move. So those are our thoughts on, why you want to choose a cloud-based solution from the Aberdeen perspective, just based on the challenges that the demographics present. And then best-in-class companies are certainly looking at this as the way to go. And based on their performance, we certainly want to take advantage and look at a cloud solution, because these guys are ahead in virtually every metric category that we look at. So now might be the time. So with that, I'm gonna stop, and I'm gonna turn it over to Morgan, and she's gonna take you the rest of the way here. Go ahead, Morgan.
Thank you, Brian. And I'd like to begin by going back to some of the challenges that Brian mentioned that businesses are faced with to be successful and really thrive in today's economy. It's vital that businesses, those best-in-class enterprises rather, are able to provide robust solutions to users anytime and anywhere. And to do this, they need universal access to data, either on a web or mobile device. They need to reduce effort and task duplication with really faster and easier and automated workflows to reduce administrative burden. And they need those workflows to be collaborative, really to effectively work with their colleagues, suppliers, and even their customers. We also see that enterprises need to ensure that they're up to date with regulatory requirements and meet the needs of compliance and reporting. And we find that customers need to stay compliant with not only legislative but also regulatory practices, which we all know are constantly evolving with regulations such as the GDPR in Europe or the Making Tax Digital regulation in the United Kingdom, and even the evolving regulations of the FDA and the MDA. We also see that these enterprises need to streamline operations so that they can be managed more quickly and more effectively, and they need their solutions to really be tailored to their discrete industry-specific business processes, which can often be a challenge. And then finally, it's all about having visibility at all times. So being able to have that real-time business insight that's often only offered through cloud ERP solutions, and be able to have user-specific dashboards and reports and be able to drill down into those data points to understand what's really driving their KPIs and their business performance, or even what's holding them back from achieving those goals. So what do these businesses want from an ERP solution? Essentially, they want it to help them be faster. Manufacturing and distribution companies want faster process cycle times. They want faster inventory turns or faster customer response times. And they really need faster insight into cost and performance. We also see that they need for their ERP solution to be intuitive, which means that they need to be able to easily manage distributed operations. And we often see that distributed often means that they're working across multiple sites, countries, maybe they're transacting in different currencies or speaking different languages, and often dealing with multiple legislations and regulations across territories or regions or countries. And what they need is a unified data management across their IT architectures, third-party applications, and even their own supplementary data sources so that they have easier access to data and can collaborate on that data and really have simpler IT management with simpler overhead. And we also see that modern enterprises want a tailored solution. I mentioned this a moment ago, but really a tailored solution to allow them to be able to deploy the solution as their business changes and grows. Maybe they want to begin with a version that's on-premise and then move to a cloud-based version of that ERP later on. Or maybe they need it to scale where they can add additional user licenses or sites or companies, even if they're doing M&As as their business evolves. But really they need that flexible capacity and customization to support their discrete business processes, and even in many cases connect to their own proprietary business applications. So I'll talk for a moment about Sage Business Cloud Enterprise Management. We really see this as a solution that provides a faster, more intuitive and tailorable business management solution that we see delivers favorable ROI and are really highly personalized experiences for businesses than traditional ERP systems. We currently serve customers that are best in class in their own industry. These customers are experiencing results such as a reduction in productive labor, as you see here with Empire Candle Company, and thus they're able to achieve annual savings that are often in the 6 digits within the first couple of years, in many cases in the first year. These customers are also able to achieve more accuracy in their sales forecasting and the management of their supply chain, which not only helps them achieve business efficiency, but helps them also surpass their sales goals and ultimately provide better products and services to their customers. And I'll talk a bit more about these customers. Some of our customers are market leaders in their own industry, and they're experiencing the challenges that we've discussed here, and they're using a business management solution such as Sage Business Cloud Enterprise Management to not only achieve that best-in-class status, but to maintain it as well, which is, often a challenge that we see our enterprise customers faced with. It's not just about getting to the best-in-class level of operations and financial performance, but it's also about thriving and maintaining that status as their business operates and as new competitors enter into the market. We also see that many of these customers are choosing to deploy Sage Business Cloud Enterprise Management via one of our cloud deployment options. And one of these customers in particular is Southern Silicones. And Southern Silicones supplies industrial food and cosmetic grade silicones. They're based in the southeastern United States, and they manufacture for customers all around the world. Their largest market is the automotive care industry, and within that industry, they supply car washes, protectorants, and even tire shine products. So Southern Silicones came to select enterprise management because they were really looking, again, as a young company, they were looking for a way to invest their available capital and their limited time back into business operations and not necessarily on the lengthy implementation of a complicated ERP application. So it was really looking for a solution that allowed them to get up to speed and realize benefits quickly, but also allowed them to tailor and customize the solution to their discrete business processes. So with enterprise management deployed in the cloud, we were able to provide a broad, really industry-specific functionality and the scalability that Southern Silicone needed. And with this, the solution did not eat up much upfront investment. They achieved fast implementation in under 3 months. And really all of this required minimal IT staff and investment. So Sage Business Cloud Enterprise Management really addresses the core financial and operational processes for enterprises across financial management, supply chain management, production management, and project management. Additionally, this product is tailored to suit industry-specific needs, all the way from companies that provide business services to discrete and process manufacturers, and even wholesalers and distributors. The product is available either on-premise or via our cloud deployment options. And our cloud options are built on the Amazon Web Services Cloud, which offers an extremely secure and stable platform that our customers can manage really their complex business operations. So I'll stop there, and I'll invite you as an audience to learn more about Sage Business Cloud Enterprise Management. You can see the link on the slide here. It's www.sage.com/us/enterprise-management. And there you'll see additional information about the product, anywhere from additional customer use cases and stories to even more information on the discrete industry-specific business processes that the product is able to support. So thank you all for your time today and the opportunity to present to you all.
That concludes our webinar session. I want to take a moment to thank Brian and Morgan for sharing their research, insights, and recommendations with us, and thank you to Sage for making this webinar possible. We hope you found this webinar to be beneficial, and if you'd like to learn more about Cloud ERP, you can reach out via the contact information currently up on the screen or visit the links for more information. Once again, thank you for watching our webinar, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your day.